Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions, where we are critical, not cynical, of the music we listen to. I'm your host, Bryan, and we're going to continue on with this week's theme of music inspired by art, checking out Metallica's One, which is based off of the novel, and I think more specifically in this case, the film, Johnny Got His Gun. This isn't really a song that needs too much of a lead-in. Pretty much everyone's heard of it. It's like the most popular metal song ever, and even I've heard of it, which is a rarity on the channel, checking out a track I've already heard before. I do want to point out real quick, has nothing to do with this, but we've listened to Megadeth, Slayer, and Metallica in the last 2 weeks, hitting a lot of big names recently. Alright, let's dive into this. Like I said, no introduction really needed for this. We have Metallica's One.
Cerebrum has suffered massive and irreparable damage.
Oh, that's right.
You never know what has happened to him.
I want to use the music video because I like having the footage. I'm not a big fan of having the samples from the film overlaid on top of the music, though. We're just going to roll with it.
What is democracy?
Got something to do with young men killing each other, I believe.
When it comes my turn, will you want me to go?
For democracy, any man would give his only begotten son.
I love these melodies coming into this. There's definitely solitude, but there's also a little bit of brightness.
It is impossible for a decerebrated individual to experience pain.
But it's just very, partly because of the tempo, just very solemn.
This young man will be as unfeeling, as unthinking as the dead until the day he joins them.
I don't know whether I'm alive and dreaming or dead and remembering.
How can you tell what's a dream and what's real when you can't even tell when you're awake and when you're asleep?
Where am I?
I can't remember anything. Can't tell if this is true or dream. Deep down inside I feel the scream. This terrible silence stops in there. Now that the war is through with me, I'm waking up, I cannot see that there's
I have never heard that harmony before.
nothing is real but pain now. Hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh please God, wake me.
Yes, punctuating that line with the highest peak we've had so far.
They won't listen. They won't hear me.
You wake me up, I'll be like this for years.
Hear me.
Back in the womb, it's much too real. It pumps life that I must feel, but can't look forward to reveal. Look to the time when I live, head to the tube that sticks in me, just like a wartime novelty.
I've never heard that harmony. Fascinating.
Cut this life off from me. Hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh please God, wake me.
It's like a piece of meat that keeps on living.
I love this too. This is the second time we've done a variation on this idea.
It won't always be like this, will it? I can't live like this. I can't. Please, no, I can't. I can't. Help me. Somebody please help me.
Lots of breathing between these lines too.
Mother, I'm having a nightmare and I can't wake up.
Now the world is gone, I'm just one. Oh God help me. Hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh please God help me.
Yep. Another variation on this idea. Almost every single one of these lead guitar melodies are based off of a single foundation, and it's just such a smart way to go about writing it. The bass kick bringing in the idea early. The rest of the band hasn't joined in on it yet. Really nice transition into their next concept.
Father, I need help. I'm in terrible trouble and I need help.
Don't you remember when you were little? How you and Bill Harper used to string a wire between the two
Such a
houses
simple
so you could
breakdown, but
telegraph to each
so
other?
effective.
You'll
We'll
remember
talk
the
about it in the
Morse code.
analysis for sure.
Darkness imprisoning me. All that I see, absolute horror. I cannot live, I cannot die. Trapped in myself, body my only fear.
It's Morse code. For what? SOS. Help.
Landmine has taken my sight, taken my speech, taken my hearing, taken my arms, taken my legs, taken my soul. Left me with life in hell.
What's he saying? He says, kill me. Over and over again. Kill me.
Don't you have some message for him, Padre? He's the product of your profession, not mine.
Just the sheer ferocity of this.
Kill me. I'm asking you to kill me.
I love that coming down the chord.
Each man faces death by himself.
I love how extended this part is.
Goodbye, Father.
Inside me, I'm screaming. Nobody pays any attention. If I had arms, I could kill myself. If I had legs, I could run away. If I had a voice, I could talk and be some kind of company for myself. Why don't they get it over with and kill me? I could yell for help, but nobody'd help me. I've just got to do something to see how I can go on like this.
What I really love about that ending is the movement. I think it's a half-step movement where our pedal tone actually moves up a little bit and comes back down, and it creates a ton of tension before trying to find that resolution. There's so many smaller, nuanced ideas that bring this song to life, and at least for me, this is, I mean, probably for a lot. I mean, one, like I said, is kind of one of Metallica's most popular tracks, but this is, to me, peak melodic Metallica. I have a small place in my heart for thrashy Metallica. But this is what I enjoy most from them. They are really great at combining melodic components with that metal aggression and finding that sweet spot in the middle that really works for me. Sometimes. I'm not going to say everything that Metallica does works perfectly for me. I've spoken in the past that while I enjoy their works, I'm not usually a huge fan of theirs. It's usually well done, just not my cup of tea, but it's stuff like this that really showcases their melodic compositional writing that speaks to me and my biases in music, what I enjoy listening to. Um, but what I absolutely love is that this does showcase that very well. It shows that even when they are playing um, thrashier music, or maybe even simpler music, less thematically appropriate music, um, that that's just one side of them. They have this part of them as well. I'd like to see it come out a little more often than it does, but it shows that they're very skilled musicians when they feel it, or they're skilled composers when they feel the need for it. They can pull this out. You know, they can they can get up there and just play fast and play aggressive and just write some really great metal tracks. But that's not all that's not all who they are. That's not the only part of them. And you know, I've talked about this in the past with plenty of bands that I just really love seeing this other facet. They, you know, these really heavy bands that can just dig into what makes metal metal, but then, you know, one song off of an album or whatever, and they really showcase a real strong understanding of how to use music to craft a story or to tell a story through their music. You know, they do an instrumental that is just gorgeous from start to finish, and then the next track is like melt your melt your ears metal, right? So yeah, I'm a huge fan of tracks like this in any band's library, but specifically Metallica's, because I feel they do walk that line very well. So, what are they doing to walk this line? Let's dig into this. Um, the song, at least to me, is split up into three movements. The second and third are very closely related to each other, but at least in my mind, they are separate, primarily because of length and impact. The first is our verse, chorus, and intro. The second moment is the landmines moment. And the third is our outro guitar solos. And as you can probably hear, that really rhythmic da 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 kind of idea exists in both the landmines bridge and in our solos outro. They are closely linked, but like I said, at least for me, I don't know how other people view this. Maybe they see the soft section and the heavy section. They only have, you know, two parts in their mind. But that bridge with the lyrics is wholly separate from our outro. So we're going to look at this in the three ways, in the three sections, bring it together, talk about some thematic concepts, hit the lyrics, tie the musical themes and the lyrical themes together, and I'll probably see you guys I'll be wrapping this video up with y'all in about 50 minutes. So I got a lot to talk about, but that's what happens when I'm pretty familiar with the track and I have things that I want to address. Usually I only tell people close to me, friends and family, and they get real tired of me talking about music this way. So it's really nice to have an audience who is interested. I hope, anyways. Hope you're not hate watching this, or maybe keep hate watching it. That's engagement. I don't know. I'm a terrible YouTuber. All right, music. That's what I'm good at. Our opening idea. We have a single guitar line come in with a lot of space between their notes. This is such an isolating opening to the track, which I think is a perfect way to showcase the book or the novel, or the film. Sorry, that's the word I wanted. Um, because it begins, well, a quick rundown of the book. A soldier is at war, and well, actually, I think the film. No, the film. No, never mind. A soldier is at war and has his body dismembered. No legs, no arms, face is destroyed. As you could see from the visuals from the film and the music video, our protagonist awakens in this state. Blind, can't speak, can't feel, can't move, really, doesn't know where they're at, but feels alone as one would. And the novel goes through and showcases flashbacks, tons of flashbacks about their life prior to going to war, I think I missed a part. They wake up in a hospital. Then there's a bunch of flashbacks, and it ends with them using Morse code to say either kill me or put me on display as a warning for anyone else who wants to go to war. And of course, the military says, no, we're not going to do that. That would not work for us, kind of idea. I think they say something like against regulation or whatever. But yeah, having the military roll out a wounded soldier like this as a warning about what it's like, a possible future for any soldier is not really going to help them recruit people. So, yeah, and then the film ends with him realizing that he can't kill himself. No one's going to kill him for him. No one's going to do anything with him. And this is his existence until he passes naturally. Pretty harrowing. But like I said, it opens with a return to consciousness. But very different from when they lost consciousness, which was right before an explosion. Their body's in a very different state. They don't have vision. And so having the song open with the ambient war sounds, machine gun fire and like distant explosions, helicopter, I think, at one point, and then da 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 da, just this very somber solo instrument, very slow moving as well. We hit these 4 notes and hang on to it. There is isolation in this. There is somber. There is solemn. It is just not. It's not sad though. I want to point that out. It's a bit hollow. It's a bit empty. It's lacking. It's one simple idea against nothingness. But it's not sad per se. We kind of reach some of this later once we introduce some melodies to play over it, but this core line is just sort of lonely. Maybe a little confused. It does a fantastic job of taking the emotional state that this person is likely in and crafting a musical identity for it. Right off the bat, such a strong understanding of both the original media and the media that they work within. How to take a visual scene and turn it into a musical one. We take this idea and we extrapolate on it. We take some of these same concepts of a series of moving notes and a held note, and we turn that into a melody that we can play over it and actually against it. Because one of the lines, actually a couple of the lines in the melody, is that we hear the do 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 do, and it's like a call and response, right? And we actually hear this quite a few times, where that core underlying 4 notes will hit and then the melody will come in after it. Just a really nice call and response. At least to me, it is almost the idea of him talking to himself or even trying to reach out for conversation. It's this need to be heard, be understood kind of idea. But again, the 2 sounds that we have are very similar. We have 2 guitars with very similar timbres and tones to them, talking to himself. There is no other option there. Now, we go through, we bring back the guitar melody, we do some vocal work, and this is punctuated with the big moment. We kick the distortion on, we kick the overdrive on, and we state the purpose of this section. Please God help me. I think that's it. Let me pull up the lyrics real quick, because if I'm not singing along with it, I'm not going to remember. It says, now the world is gone on. Oh, that might be the second time. Let me pull up the lyrics real quick. Seriously? I type 1. I figured that's all I needed to type. And it gave me a bunch of songs with 1 in the title, but not Metallica's 1. There's no other song that is just 1. Why did you give me anything other than Metallica? All right. Um, there we go. Oh, hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh, please, God, wake me. This is a huge moment. Up until now, it's sort of just explaining things. It's a bit of narrative. It's describing the situation and sort of the last thing the dude remembered. And this is the big moment. This is where we get the core idea of the song. What makes it so heartbreaking isn't just the damages of war, it isn't just the state of this person. It's that everything is so bad, they want to die. And to make this statement hit as hard as it does, Metallica decided they needed the oomph of metal to do that. So they shift to power chords with distorted guitars, and they do it for 2 bars and pull it right back. It is meant to be a gut punch, and that's it. It is not there to move to a heavy metal section. It is not there to continue with any aggression. It is not even really an aggressive moment. It's a punctuated moment. Super powerful idea there. We move into some more guitar melodies. And I had mentioned the word variation a couple of times in the reaction. And I actually, you know, when I listen to songs that I've checked out before, what's really interesting is that rarely have I listened to them critically. A lot of the rock and metal adjacent stuff that I've listened to in the past has been casually, usually as a teenager or 20 something, early 20 something, just as music to listen to, not to critique, not to learn from, unless I wanted to start a rock band. And I did at one time. Story for another day, I suppose. But there wasn't anything from rock or metal that I could learn and adapt to what I was composing at the time, what I was going to school for, which was classical. Um, so I never dug into any of that critically, and my professors didn't help with that either. Rock and metal was no different than pop. It was just that music, that simple music everyone listened to today, and nothing like jazz or classical. And well, if the people I'm looking up to are saying that, who am I to say anything different? So yeah, it took me a long time, actually, until recently, with this channel, that I've begun to really dig into some of this stuff and be, oh, there's things to learn here. There's some really neat concepts being utilized in these works. So to listen to this track now, and I'm really listening to these melody lines, I'm like, these all have the same bones to them. All of these, I think Kirk played all of the melody lines in, like, the first 3 melody lines in our verse, chorus section. Um, they're all very similar, and I don't know how much of that is just Kirk had one really great idea and ran with it, or how much of it was that he wanted them all to feel similar. And given how much attention to detail Metallica puts into a lot of the other decisions in the track, I want to lean on the fact that this is supposed to be a thematic decision. I don't quite know the reading of it. I don't know why or what it's supposed to represent. But, I mean, it is one foundational melody for all of that's bad. But yeah, it's really neat, and something I want to do now is to take all of these and overlay them in notation software. I'd probably have to use like Guitar Pro then, because it's probably tabbed out, and then translate that to, because I think Guitar Pro do that, right? If you put in tabs, it'll spit out notes, no typical notation. Anyways, I want to see just how close and where the variations come from, because the more I listen to them, the more I realize that they're all utilizing very similar ideas, just expanding on them. Where we started out with just 4 notes and a held idea, we moved to 6 notes and a held idea. We moved to taking those initial 4 and turning them into 16th notes rather than 8th notes, and then holding something out. And maybe at the end of that, instead of holding it out until the next downbeat at 1, maybe we stop a half a beat early and have like 4/16th notes act as a run into the next phrase. It's little embellishments like that that I think really punctuate most of the beginnings and ends of the melody lines. Everything in the middle does get changed pretty drastically, and that's where the hummable stuff really comes in, and where you can differentiate, oh, this melody is very different from this melody, and you hum them differently. But a lot of the ideas of rising and falling action between all the phrases and the note choices, the note jumps, a lot of the key notes, the ones that you really think of, not the moving ones, not the quick ones that are between the notes, but the ones that are held out, are very similar. The ones that are really emphasized are similar from melody to melody. There's a lot of follow through between these. It's really interesting to hear that bum 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 really get adapted and transformed as it goes on into something that is a bit different. There's a lot more movement in that final melodic, well, the final melody in the melodic section, but it still has that feeling of those first 5 notes we hear. But through this, we also have rising intensity. Each melody gains more and more movement, it becomes more frantic. That's not to say that we ever reach a point where we are, tremolo picking our melody line or anything like that, but where we start out with 5 notes, bum 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 bum, just kind of existing, not a lot of movement to them. We end with a melody line that has da 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 da. There's a lot more movement to it. Also, I'll have to talk about that later. A lot of those half note, or not half note, but rising repetitions where you play one idea, da 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 da, and then you go up to the next step in the key, da 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 da, da 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 da. Kirk also does that in his solo in the thrashier section at the end as well, and it makes me want to listen to more Metallica and see how often Kirk does that, because first of all, it is a very cool technique. I love it. It is a masterful way to get from one note to another while retaining a cohesion in the phrase. Because another way that I often hear is just to shred straight up there, or to use rising thirds or something like that, any other type of pattern. But I love this little micro riff, and just using this repetition stepwise to get up there. It just adds something very beautiful, especially in this moment when we have an overall beautiful melody within it. But we have this rising energy in those melodic moments, and it really helps to sell when we hit that second time when he says, "Hold my breath as I wish for death, please God wake me," and nope, the final chorus before going into the digga digga digga. Nope, the part before that. Anyways, when we kick into the overdrive, and we stay in there, and it's the section right before the landmine section. Um, if we just went from that melody, that chill melody, into that, I think it would have felt a bit off. But there's this gradual rising tension and energy and momentum all throughout our 2 verses. The first chorus feels like it comes out of nowhere. That's that punctuated section I told you, the 2 bars of overdriven guitar that backs off again. It comes out of nowhere. It's supposed to be a gut punch, but the second time it comes around, it's not supposed to be as much. You're supposed to expect it, not to mention that the music is rising towards that area. We have more and more elements going on, layers, and movement, direction, notes, more notes than ever. It is feeling more energetic, and it feels like the song needs to explode into that distorted guitar sound, or else it will snap. It needs to go towards that. Just really great use of the music to craft a very specific journey, a ride through these 2 moments, so that they feel connected despite being very different from each other. Then we have the guitar duet, I think, right before the landmine section. And this is the first time we get a melody that isn't so closely connected to our original guitar line from the opening of the track. This one incorporates a little bit more darkness to it, a little bit more sorrow. but because of the guitar tone, we begin to interpret a little bit of anger. And I absolutely love that idea. We have shifted from isolation and solemnness and just kind of bummed out into something that is sad and angry about the situation. Another aspect about this part that I want to point out is something I talked about in the reaction itself, is that Lars slowly introduces the rhythm from the bridge in the bass kick as drum fills 8 bars early. 8 bars before we actually get to the bridge. The first time it is just, I think it's just like 3 or 5 eighth notes at the end of the 4 bar phrase in the bass kick. And then the second time moving into it, we have a few of them. We have like 2 sets of the 5 or something, to introduce the idea twice, to slowly sneak it in so that when we actually come in full wise with the band, the bass, the 2 guitars, the drums, everybody's on this riff. Nobody's doing anything else. We have these pockets of silence around it. One, very impactful, but two, it doesn't feel out of place. We have been led here. It makes sense to be here because the drummer has already been sneaking this idea into the song. What's really interesting as well is the first time that Lars uses the double bass kick for this section, leading up to it, it's very quiet. I don't know if that was a production mistake, but the second time that he does this lead up fill with the bass kick, it's quite a bit louder, almost to the point of where it is during the bridge itself. And I don't know if that was done to make it even sneakier. We're going to introduce it, we're going to pull it down a little bit. Lars doesn't seem like the type of person who is nuanced, and also isn't the type of person to lower his drumming EQ at all. So, kind of sounds like a mistake to me, but I'm going to read it as intentional because it works very well with this idea of sneaking this in, almost like it's a flashback. Which is what it is, kind of. It's a memory. The music video, in fact, does flashback to the landmine moment. So it's a sneaking, almost like transition idea. And again, I kind of don't think it was intentional, but I have to read it as that because it just works so well. This takes us into the extremely iconic bridge. We have a recollection of what has happened and how it is directly affecting our narrator and has forced them to feel the way that they do about their current situation. It's why they want to die, be allowed to die in this situation. What I love is that it not only introduces the intensity of our third section, the instrumental outro, but it does so in a way that feels very much like several themes tied together. It is very abrupt, very percussive, and has a lot of space in it. There are a couple of times when we'll get the da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, and we'll actually hold out those notes, but a lot of the time we just have sharp stops, da-da-da-da, and then silence. Nobody's doing anything. All you have is the reverberation from the drums. The guitars have all been palm muted. There's a little bit of a resonant tone, but it's so quiet that it might as well not even be there. This silence is something we haven't heard since the beginning of the track. There hasn't been a moment of silence. There's always been something being played. This is sharp contrast to everything we were just in. That tells us that we are in a sharp contrast thematically as well. The very rhythmic, I'm going to be talking on very common points at this moment. The very rhythmic is very emblematic of machine gun fire. This is supposed to be not only a musical visualization, a musical metaphor for war and combat specifically, but to me it also showcases the rage within. Like I mentioned, it kind of works as a flashback, the drum idea pulling us into this. in which case it really works to kind of having these sounds of war being in our narrator's head. They flash back to this idea and they're hearing these sounds all over again, but it's also about this building tension within our narrator. They want something so badly now. They have tried so long to play nicely and to just try to get this across as courteously as they can. They've been, well, first of all, just trying to figure out how to speak at all before they land on Morse code. And here, I think they've already been denied it. I don't remember. But absolutely tells about the horrid situation they're in and the chaos they feel within, the anger that all they want is this one request and they're not getting it. This takes us into our outro, which continues on with the same rigid staccato attack, just with more notes held out. We get rid of the silence. We pair that with two guitar sections. One is a solo, one is a duet. What I absolutely find both of these heartbreaking is that they are extremely chaotic. And this is going to be an interesting point because I got done praising Metallica's melodic writing here. I do wish, at least with this moment, and this is going to be a criticism on one of the biggest songs ever. I'm sure I'm about to get 10,000 downvotes on this. I kind of wish they went for a little bit more dissonance here. I do. The ending of this song, to me, is an expansion of what we just went through on the bridge. It is a combination between internal conflict and the fact that given that they have no longer, that they can no longer see or speak, all they have left is themselves, their own brain, and the only visions they have are the past, which the recent memories are extremely traumatic of war and include an event that led them to the specific place they're in. It is not a happy place right now. Not only just having the memories of war and the sounds of combat in their head, but also the anger of having a final wish be denied that would save them from the hell they feel they are in. That anger and hatred and loneliness and helplessness is all paired with those same feelings, possibly, while being in combat. Specifically looking at some of the footage where our protagonist seems pretty scared as they jump into that crater. These two guitar solos are designed to showcase all of that emotional flurry. That is why they are fast. That is why they are aggressive. That is why they have such sharp punctuation in most of it. We've given up on most of the longer held out notes that we heard in the more melodic solos from our first section. These are more traditional metal solos. To add to this, I want to bring back up the idea of Kirk's stepwise micro riffs. I absolutely love utilizing them in this section, in his solo, because of the way that it implies a sort of whirlwind, at least to me. It's the same things over and over in his mind. Maybe there's slight variations. Maybe there's a detail they remember. Maybe it's a different kind of anger. Maybe they're angry at something else right now. But it's cyclical, and having that rise up and gaining the tension of this rising idea while being the same riff over and over, just with changing notes but not changing note distances, perfectly encapsulates that type of cyclical, meaningless life that this person now has to live. They don't get to experience anything else. They get to live on a bed, hooked up to tubes, not being able to see or speak to anyone else. The only solace they have is to relive their memories. The same cycles over and over. I do kind of wish Kirk had leaned more into this idea of cyclical micro riffs, but that's fine. What I mentioned earlier was dissonance, and all of the note choices in here are very clean, very expected. They're all within key. I think this would have really helped to bring in some notes out of key. And for some reason, I thought it did. When I came up to this section, I was like, yes, I'm going to get to talk about coloring outside the lines a little bit. And then the solo went, and I was like, actually, every note was in key. I don't know why I remember the first guitar solo being so much more tense than it was this time I listened. But everything is in key, and it really made me wish that it wasn't. Given the speed that they're playing, even a note that is highly dissonant would really only give a little bit of that flavor. We wouldn't really hear much of the dissonance as they'd pull off of it pretty quickly, especially on those faster 16th note ideas where Kirk is using hammer-ons and pull-offs to play notes really quickly. And I really would have liked some of that chaotic element compositionally to showcase the chaos within. However, I can't discount the melodic idea here. Everything is extremely sound, and the ideas they're exploring are perfectly captured within consonant writing. Consonant is just the opposite of dissonance, where everything sounds good together. We go from this back into the unified idea, where everybody's playing the same thing. Right before we go into the duet, I mentioned here that I really appreciate the length of this section. They could have ended the song right here. In fact, the ending of the song after the duet basically takes this concept that sits between the two solos, plays it out, and then adds the outro to it. So if we delete the duet and we delete the second time that we return to the unified sound and just copy that ending to the end of this section, it would make perfect sense. And I think it would even sound a bit complete, though of course not to us because we know of the full version, what was created on our timeline. But I appreciate that they said, okay, we're going to return to this idea. We're going to sit in this idea, just this driving, underlying, foundational concept for like 8 bars. And then we're going to go into another duet that once again encapsulates the feelings and the emotional whirlwind that this person is in. Then we're going to finish it out. And the finishing out isn't short either. We spend another 8 bars, I think, in that unified sound, and then we get the ending with all of those false stops. There's so many times that we get like 2 or 3 real sharp cymbal hits. Everybody's doing these short staccato notes. Any one of those could have been the ending. But it loops over, and they keep giving us these false endings. And there's just something about the length of this. It feels so much longer than any other section of the track. I mean, the bridge is the shortest one, of course, and like I said, most people might even just view it as part of this second heavier section, but it's so much longer than our opening, I think. At least I feel that way. And at least to me, they probably could have even gone for a third solo, and I think it would have fit well because it's designed to showcase the never-ending feeling of just time stretching out for this character. This is his life now, to sit in this rage and sadness and loneliness and helplessness forever, naturally dying while hooked up to machines that ensure he stays alive. The amount of time he's going to stay on this deathbed is incalculable. It could be decades. He's still a young man before his body ultimately fails despite being on machines. That anxiety and fear of knowing this is your life for years to come and what that stretch of time feels like is the ending of this track. It is why it continues to stretch out. It is why we could have ended it, but we went for a second solo. It's why after that we could have ended it, but we went for an extended unified sound. It's why after that we decided not to just end it on a single note or a resolution, but to utilize these very sharp endings repeatedly, where any one of these could be the ending, but none are. During this section, we also have rising and falling tension. I mentioned that the note that they choose, the root note, the one that they're palm muting before playing the higher note in their rhythmic riffage going on, it shifts. For like 4 bars it's here, and then for like 3 bars it's a half step up, and then 4 bars it's here, and then like 8 bars it's a half step up. And it's this tension and resolution. And every time we come back down to the resolution, it feels like the song should end. And then they give us a false ending and we rise back up, back to the tension. And it's you physically well, maybe not you, I'm not going to speak for y'all, but me listening to this rising tension, resolution, rising tension. I feel like the song should end. I have felt that the song should end. You guys have played this short staccato hit 4 times now. We are now in a resolution as far as chords are represented. That should be the end of the song. And it's over, right? And then it's not over. You guys decide to rise up again and repeat the last, 2 bars once more. It puts us back into the mind of the narrator. They want things to be over. They want to die. It's the only humane thing they can think of that would end their suffering. And every time possibly that they think they are, maybe they feel their heart palpitate a little. This might be the moment. Nope, everything just kind of resets. The heartbeat goes back to normal, or maybe the machines start making weird noises. Maybe this is, my chance. And no, it isn't. Turned 60 years old. Well, I'm getting kind of old. How much longer am I going to last? Well, maybe it's still going on. Maybe you're still living. And that feeling that you're at the end and then you're not puts the listener in the same mindset as our protagonist. It's so expertly crafted. Every piece of this song is designed to capture the feelings and emotions of our narrator. It is giving voice to his mind, giving him the one thing he wanted other than death, was to have a conversation with somebody, to have company and to provide company. And they are allowing that voice that is stuck within to be presented sonically. Not through voice, but through something else, through the tool that Metallica has, which is music. I'd like to think that if this character were real, which I don't think it's based off of anyone real, I think it's fiction, that they would find some solace that Metallica finally gave them a voice. Those are my thoughts on Metallica's One. I know we didn't hit lyrics, but we kind of talked about all the topics of the lyrics already. Going back through them would just be reiterating quite a bit of the stuff that I said during the musical breakdown, which is kind of odd for me. But like I said, when you kind of know a song, it's not even like I've heard the song once before. One is just one of those tracks that I think everybody's heard at least a dozen times. So yeah, a little bit of a different way of crafting us, but those are my thoughts. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this track. Anything that stands out to you, anything that you want to add on to what I said or correct me on, let me know. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. Has links for everything related to the channel on it. You can support the channel in a variety of ways, as well as find the communities that sit around the channel, such as YouTube, such as Twitter and Discord. This is YouTube. You guys already found this community. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. We have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. We'll continue on with this week's theme and check out a special selection. Until next time, remember, be critical, not cynical, about the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.